The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
And welcome back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with the panel, Dr. Scott Gershper and Dr. Mark Bound. Today, we will be answering listener emails as we work our way through our gigantic, bulging bag of listener email questions in Mark's inbox. And we have a question from Freddie, who lives in Frankfurt, Germany. Freddie asks, Americans have always interested me and many of my friends who watch American culture and politics. We have a collective question, and we hope the panel can answer. Why are Americans so susceptible to conspiracy theories and disinformation? The more we hear, the more disappointed in Americans we get. And Freddie, I am with you. The more I hear and see of my fellow Americans, the more disappointed I become. And so I'm hoping that Mark and Scott can answer the question. I have one or two ideas. Anyway, Mark, Scott, what do you have?
What do you think, Scott?
Well, I think we're a bunch of idiots over here, Freddie. And I know that our culture probably makes us out to be smarter than we are, but really, Homer Simpson, if you guys get that over there, he's pretty much actually pretty accurate.
That's correct.
And what used to be a joke is now serious, and it's just who we are. And look, here's another thing, and this is a little bit more serious. We used to have local media, and now we basically, a lot of people get their news from online influencers and nut jobs and conspiracy theories and Facebook and different groups and things like that have replaced the role of local newspapers. It's not having a good effect on the country. And it's been like this for a while. I mean, go back to Pizzagate in 2016. You can go back to Bastrop, Texas, with Operation Jade Helm, when the people of Texas were told by the lieutenant governor that the federal government is coming after their guns and they should bury them in their backyard. And they had a rumor went around that all the Walmarts were connected by secret tunnels, and that the Walmarts that were closing down in these small towns were closing down because they were being turned into indoor concentration camps and things like that. And there's a lot of idiocy in the world. Well, maybe not in the world. There's a lot of idiocy in the United States of America. People are very misinformed and uninformed and disinformed, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, it is unfortunate. Let me also say to Freddie, you were the first listener of the emails that I was perusing as I was going through, who mentioned our new music that is in our outro for the Nova Society, and very thankful you liked our shortened disclaimer and the music that goes along that. Those were changed, and of course Scott and Brooke look at me going, "They are? We didn't know that." That's because you don't listen, you don't subscribe. So we've got that going. Freddie did mention it, and they said, "Oh yeah, we like that new music." In fact, he asked me for a link to it, and I will be sending that off to you, Freddie. The link to the new music. And I will say this, my wife is the one that actually picked it out. We had a bunch that were sent to us, and my wife actually picked that one out. Anyway, yeah, we are stupid. We are Homer Simpson. Yes, I don't think I could put it any better. I really don't think I can put it very much better. We're kind of in between The Simpsons and South Park. And I know you get South Park in Germany. I know you do. Because I have friends there that say they get South Park, and they think it's rather funny. And then couple in Archie Bunker. If you ever could watch All in the Family and go back to that, this is actually who we always were. You know, All in the Family, we're talking back in the 70s. That's over 50 years, in 50 years or so ago. And we've said this on a podcast before, probably last year at some point in time. All in the Family would never be able to be aired today. Never going to happen. Just like one of Scott's favorite movies, Blazing Saddles. They never make that today because of how irreverent it was and how really it really was an honest depiction of the American people. The difference became when Donald Trump came into the limelight in 2015, and we've said this before. All of them thought that was a signal that it was okay for them to basically let out their lesser angels, and they've done so. Are the American people stupid? No, but they're susceptible. I know I always call them stupid, but they're susceptible. They're susceptible to things like believing that worldwide wrestling and the WWE was real. Now, I admit, when I was 10 years old and I watched championship wrestling, I believed it was real. But then I became 12 years old, and then I realized that it was not. It just, you kind of grow out of that. The people that believe that Honey Boo Boo, Here Comes Honey Boo Boo, was unscripted and, live TV. The Duggars, all these different TV shows. And I put a lot of blame, and I've done this before, on A&E, who put all these reality TV shows out there. Duck Dynasty, all these crazy TV shows that are out there that are supposedly reality TV, and we even call it reality TV, and it's anything but real. The Search for Bigfoot, Fear the Neighbor,
The Apprentice,
being a huge example. Shark Tank. I mean, all of these are people truly believe that this is unscripted. It is real life, and it's not. And you cannot convince them of that. And if they could see the behind the scenes, and I always said, and I think I've told this before, my dad took me to a wrestling match when I was 12, and I always believed it was real. We went across the street. Him and his friends went across the street, and they were having a beer, and I was there having a soda, and in walked the Wild Samoans, who on stage couldn't speak a lick of English, and Hulk Hogan, who they just got done wrestling and hated each other or beating each other up. They were sitting having a beer at the bar. Oh, and guess what? The Samoans speak absolutely perfect English. It is an act. It is an act. And same thing with Trump. Trump is an act. But we elected what we thought was reality, what a lot of people thought was reality. And again, I blame that on our society. I don't know if you have the same problem in Germany. I do know you have a like show like Big Brother. I know you've got that there because I've been told by friends. Do you believe that's real? I guess I would ask Freddie that. Do you believe that that's real, or do you believe that that's scripted and is just simply entertainment? And the issue you run into is if you say, I think it's real, you're running down the same path we did. And that would be terribly, terribly unfortunate. We have become that society. And I agree with Scott with the idea of local news. Influencers. I mean, really? I always tell my students who would say, well, Hannity said, Sean Hannity went to 5 universities and never graduated from a single one. You're about to graduate with a bachelor's degree from a university or a master's degree from a university. You are 5 times more educated than that yo-yo on the television. Why are you giving away your intellectual power to him? Somebody that couldn't even graduate from any of the universities. Why? Why would you do that? Because he's on the television. And again, that's the society we live in. That's everybody with their face in their phone. It really is. It's the society we live in. Hopefully, and I truly do believe that since we're a consumer society, and we are a very big consumer society, probably more so than any other nation in the world, I think that contributes to it. We not only consume goods, we'll buy pretty much anything. We'll pay, we'll bitch about it as far as the price, but we'll pay for it. We also consume this garbage. We're just crazy about consuming this garbage that is out there on this internet, that is on digital and social media, and we cannot. We're becoming a society that can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality, and that's our problem. And I think it's fast. It's happened faster in the United States than anywhere else.
Yeah, it's funny. It occurred to me, and this is kind of a personal anecdote, not proof of anything, but after I got done at Nova and where I was when I found out that they had accepted my dissertation and I was going to be a PhD, I was in Germany. I was in Berblingen, which is, I guess, a suburb of Stuttgart. And I opened up my email and I saw that my dissertation had been accepted and I had to make a defense date and so on. And I was in a room of about 300 people, mostly Germans, and wondered how many people in this audience have PhDs. And I bet there was a handful of them. And if I was in a room with 300 random Americans, there would be not another one. And our education system here is awful. It is out of date and dysfunctional. And, frankly, we need a lot of reforms here before we can catch up to where we had been probably in as late as the 1960s or 70s.
Brooke?
Yeah, I wanted to add, I'm trying to remember the name of the book. I took a mass media course, and one of the textbooks that I'm sorry, I cannot remember the name of, was written by a professor whose father had been a doctor, and his best friend's father was a lawyer. And it was very interesting. He said how his father, they would watch like Perry Mason, and they would watch one of the popular medical shows. And his own father, being a medical doctor, would poo-poo the medical show. Oh, it was so silly. It was ridiculous. That's not how hospitals work. The doctor would never say that, and this, that, and the other thing. But his own father believed that Perry Mason, which was a TV lawyer, that was how lawyers talked and how a courtroom worked and everything else. Meantime, his best friend, whose father was an attorney, because he and his friend talked about it, his friend's father, the attorney, poo-pooed Perry Mason. Oh my God, his friend's father would say, that's not how a lawyer speaks. That's not how a courtroom works. He would never do that. This whole thing is ridiculous. But the lawyer father absolutely believed that the medical show was exactly how doctors talked and hospitals worked, and everything was absolutely correct, which of course it was not from the professional doctor's perspective. And so in a person's own profession and own recognition of what's real. So for instance, I've spent much of my life horseback riding, and I can look at anybody on a screen in a film, and I can tell you immediately whether the person knows how to ride or not. But I cannot look at an ice skater or at somebody who is rowing, like in a rowing crew, and tell you whether that person knows how to skate or row, because I don't know enough about it. I cannot tell the difference between what a professional ice skater at the Olympic level what the person should look like, or what rowing crew should look like, and what I see on the screen. But I'm sure somebody who is a skater or who does row could tell instantly whether or not the actors actually do skate in real life or do row in real life and actually know what they're doing, or whether they've taken a few lessons and they try to make it look good enough for the film. And I think that that's part of the problem. If a person is not an expert in that area and doesn't see what's outside the frame, which of course, if one is not the content maker with like these influencers and things of this nature, there's no way to have any concept of what is actually happening. So as Mark was saying, with these reality shows, so-called, unless a person is there and watching the filming and watching the crew and seeing what is happening, you have no idea what's going on outside the frame of what the director wants you to see and where the camera is pointing. And in the United States, we have a film culture and a mass media culture, and are brought up to identify ourselves with what is believed to be the American way as internalized by what we see from American television and American film. And that is not the world. And American television and American film is also not reality. And people forget about that. And I think that that's a terrible problem, particularly in today's social media. And look at the Slender Man case, where these two girls who, like 12 and 13 or something, tried to murder a classmate because they believed that this Slender Man, that was completely fiction, wanted them to sacrifice this girl to him so that they would be in his good graces, or some completely mentally unhealthy fixation that they had with this entity that doesn't even exist. And they actually tried to murder their friend in real life. So it goes beyond cultural fixation. It moves into our real life. And when we've got our real lives, and when we have a president who says, like the other night, well, you should have been a filmmaker, and that we should reopen Alcatraz because it's going to send a big, strong message, and Alcatraz is beautiful and ugly and strong and weak and this and that, and then he has to bring in the fact that someone tried to escape and their clothes were all full of shark bites, and he's got to bring in his fixation with sharks. And so now he wants to reopen Alcatraz to put people there, and it's like there's no contact with reality for him. But unfortunately, in his position of power, his magical thinking, it winds up really becoming public policy with consequences that are disastrous. So I don't know if I've answered your question, Freddie, but Americans, I think, are primed since very young childhood, where very often the child's only companion is television, or films, DVD, whatever it might be, now streaming. We're primed to believe what we see because real life is just really not necessarily that exciting. And it should be, because that's what we've internalized. So thank you, Freddie. That's a really excellent question. I hope we've answered your question. And thank you for listening to us, and all the way from Germany. And we appreciate it. And do take care. And we'll see you again next time.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening!